up, down velocity and time, basically positive and negative velocity, and time, quiz 2012. An object is thrown vertically up at 7.5 meters per second. Positive x is defined as to the right, negative y is vertically down. So the object is thrown vertically up at 7.5 meters per second. What is the time of flight? Time of flight is for you to go and come back to the same point. What is the time of flight if it is caught on the way down at the same height? Ignore air resistance. Assume uniform acceleration due to gravity, 9.8 meters per second. Is it A, 0.714 seconds? Or is it B, 1 second? Or is it C, 1.53 seconds? Or is it D, 1.4 seconds? So acceleration is change of velocity divided by time. We know the vertical acceleration. It is 9.8 meters per second, and that is the magnitude. So what will be the acceleration vector? It will be negative 9.8 meters per second. So the acceleration due to gravity is negative 9.8 meters per second. Why? Because the acceleration vector points down. So the acceleration due to gravity along the vertical is negative 9.8 meters per second. Final velocity is negative 7.5 meters per second. So if you throw something vertically up at 7.5 meters per second, what do you think will happen on the way down? On the way up, the acceleration decreases the speed. On the way down, the acceleration increases the speed. So because of that reason, it will have to come back to 7.5, but pointing down. So if you throw something vertically up at 8 meters per second, then the initial velocity vector will be positive 8. How about the final velocity vector? It will be negative 8. It is on its way down. So what is the initial velocity? 7.5. Why? You're throwing it vertically up, so it is positive. Positive y is defined as vertically up. How about the final velocity? Negative. Why? It is on its way down. If you know the acceleration, do not forget it is a vector. If you know the acceleration, the final velocity, and the initial velocity, do you know the time? And the answer should be yes. What is our acceleration? It is negative 9.8 because acceleration due to gravity is pointing down. Acceleration due to gravity is pointing down. So acceleration is negative 9.8. By definition, average acceleration is equal to final velocity minus initial velocity. That's the change in velocity. So change in velocity divided by time. So what is the final velocity? Negative 7.5. Why? After you throw it vertically up, what happens? It goes to the maximum height where its instantaneous vertical velocity is 0, and then beyond that it is going to increase its speed, and it will increase its speed back to 7.5 if you catch it at the same height. So on the way down, what happens to the final velocity? It is negative 7.5. What about the initial velocity? It was thrown vertically up. Remember, it is final velocity minus initial velocity. So minus 7.5. So negative 7.5 minus 7.5. What is that? Negative 15. So you get negative 9.8 equals negative 15 over t. And you can cancel negative from both sides. And what do we get? 9.8 is equal to 15 divided by t. Solve for t, and what do we get? 15 divided by 9.8, and that is 1.53 seconds. So if you throw something vertically up at 7.5 meters per second, It's going to go and come back, and if you catch it on the way down, the velocity is going to be negative 7.5 meters per second, and the total time will be time to go up and time to come down. The total time in that case will be 1.53 seconds, provided you throw it vertically up at 7.5 meters per second, very close to the surface of the earth, so that you can assume uniform acceleration due to gravity. Just use the formula that you learned. V final is equal to V0 plus acceleration times time. V final is negative 7.5. Now here is the problem. You have to know this, because on its way down, your velocity is down, pointing down. So this is where we can lose points. If you put positive 7.5, you're in trouble. It is negative 7.5. Negative 7.5 because it's on its way down. Because it is on its way down. What about the initial velocity? You're throwing it up. It is positive 7.5. The acceleration due to gravity is negative 9.8 because it is pointing down, times time. So you subtract 7.5 from both sides, and what do we get? Negative 15 equals negative 9.8t. Divide both sides by negative 9.8, and what do we get for time? 1.53 seconds. So our time is 1.53 seconds, and that is 1.53 seconds. And this is George Mathew saying goodbye for my dad and for myself. Thank you all.